Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 23rd November 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and the Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your examination. In the initial two topics, we have included two mains practice questions which will be useful for your upcoming mains examination. So in our first topic, we will look into various major initiatives which were proposed by Honorable Prime Minister while addressing the G20 summit in South Africa. After that, in our second topic, we will look into various dimensions of MSMEs in India, their role in economy, associated challenges and the way forward. After that, in our simplified section, we'll take up 5 articles and we'll try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be crucial for your upcoming prelims and mains examinations. So have a look on them also and stay tuned. So let's start with the first topic, and the context of that topic is that Prime Minister proposes 6 new initiatives while addressing the G20 summit in South Africa, and this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, important international institutions, bilateral grouping and agreements, effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest. If you look into the history of G20, you can relate it with the formation of G6 which happened in year 1973 when countries like West Germany, Italy, UK, US, etc. came together, formed a grouping to actually give a response to the opaque oil crisis that happened. Along with that, the collapse of Bretton Woods monetary system that had happened at that point of time. They wanted a coordinated response to that kind of financial crisis which were being faced at that point of time. Then in 1976, when Canada joined this G6, it became G7. After that, in 1999, when the emerging economies like India, Brazil, South Africa, etc. also became part of this organization, it became G20, and it started out a meeting of finance minister and central bank governors to ensure a proper financial governance which is more inclusive in nature. Also, this following the global financial crisis in 2008, which impacted the whole global economy, there was an urgent need that was felt that leaders of the states, head of the state should also be representing in that particular G20 meetings. And that is the reason that first G20 summit of the heads of the state and the government was held in 2008 in Washington DC. And subsequently, it was also felt that the agenda of this G20 should also be expanded. It should not limit itself to finance itself. Rather, trade, energy, health, etc. were certain other dimensions which were being discussed, which were kept as an important agenda in the G20 meetings. And as of now, it is attended by the finance ministers and the head of the governments which are representing the members. If you look into the members, there are total 19 members. Along with that, European Union is the member and African Union is the latest entrant in the list of the G20 countries. If you look into the fact that how powerful are they, so the G20 nation accounts for around 85% of world economy, 75% of world trade and 66% of overall world population. And that is the reason what is the agenda that is kept as part of G20 that shapes the overall global economy. Also, this is an important part of your syllabus because there has been multiple instances where there were various questions which has been asked related to G20. For example, in 2020 itself, there was a question that in which of the following groups are all the 4 countries member of G20 itself. Similarly, in 2023, there was a question that one is related to the G20 group's initial phase, what was the mechanism that they were following, and the digital public infrastructure is one of the G20 priorities that was one of the G20 priorities when India was the president. So the learning that you can take from this particular these particular questions is that there was a question on G20 in 2020. There is a similar question that is coming on the same theme in 2023. So UPSC is giving you hint from the PYQs itself, and that is the reason we keep on emphasizing that please look into the PYQs. It further narrows down the area that you need to prepare comprehensively for your examination. If UPSC is asking question related to G20, that means that is an important theme that you need to prepare for the upcoming examination. And that is what is visible from the questions which has been asked. That they have already asked about G20 and they are asking about G20 further in 2023. Now, you people tell me the answer of these particular 2 questions in the comment box. When we look into the proposals, there were total major 6 proposals which were given by Honorable Prime Minister. The first important is with regard to the Global Traditional Knowledge Repository. Traditional knowledge, the example of that can be, let's suppose, zero budget natural farming, where we minimize the resources, the synthetic resources that we will be using for the agricultural practices, or Ayurveda, Siddha, Unani, Yoga, etc. These all are the traditional knowledge, and India wants to create a repository of that, and not only the Indian knowledge, the global knowledge. And why is it so? Because this traditional wisdom exchange will help us in getting solutions to the new age problems that we are going to witness. For example, let's suppose after COVID-19 came, India gave Namaste to world. That is again a kind of way of greeting which was unique for the world. Or let's suppose the yoga or the different kind of breathing exercises which were promoted by India, that has also helped to the world in coping with the COVID-19 complications. So with this particular proposal, there will be global knowledge sharing, the traditional wisdom exchange will happen. It will also bring the preservation missions, because we need to understand that this ancient heritage needs to be safeguarded. If that will not be digitized properly, then we might lose this in future, and that is the reason there should be proper preservation missions should be launched. Also, the India's knowledge missions which are there, be it Ayurveda, Yoga, Siddha, Unani, etc., we will be scaling up it to a global level. We can market it at global level, because at global level there is demand of this particular traditional knowledge. For example, WHO's Global Center for Traditional Medicine was established at Jamnagar in Gujarat itself. That also shows that at the global level also people are interested towards the India's traditional knowledge. Also, it can provide certain sustainable solutions. For example, with climate change, along with that, when we have already used lot of synthetic or artificial fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, plus the groundwater depletion that we are witnessing, climate change related pest attacks, etc., that is increasing. That is the reason world wants to move towards sustainable solutions for agriculture, for as an example. That is the reason India can promote this zero budget natural farming, which is a sustainable alternative for the agricultural practices. There are various traditional paddy cultivation methods which are very popular in Kerala. Also, the future generations who will have this collective wisdom, they can get benefit of that only when it will be digitized, and it will ensure that intergenerational access of this knowledge is happening. Similarly, the second proposal that Honorable Prime Minister gave is G20 Africa Skills Multiplier Initiative. And why is it so? Because the Africa will host around 1 in 3 global youth by 2050. This is said by the OECD. But they have the low employability gap. Only 8% of African youths gain high skill jobs. This is said by the OECD. That means that there is a training shortage that they are witnessing, that they do not have the proper resources or institutions, mechanisms who can provide proper training to these young population. And in the coming times, the working age population in the African countries will increase, and they can provide solutions to global talent shortages. But again, we need to understand that for that, there should be a proper industry academia linkages. For example, whatever the training that is being provided to them, that is in sync with the demand of the industry. Industry is demanding, let's suppose, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, deep learning, big data analytics, etc. So we need to provide them with these kind of skill sets which can make them employable properly. Also, we need to understand that if you look into the chaos which is generally witnessed in African regions, that there were various civil wars that is going on, the condition of hunger, malnutrition, diseases, etc., that is very high in Africa. And if the skills will be provided to them, their employability, their productivity will improve, and they will have better earnings, and whatever the earning that they are getting, that they can invest on the education of their child, health of their child, or education and health of their family, which can further improve their skill sets, and that can further make them employable not only in African region but at the global level itself. So the Africa has a huge potential, and if they will be getting proper skill sets, that can be utilized not only by the African continent but by the whole world. And that is the reason India is focusing on reaping that demographic dividend, and they are proposing this initiative. Also, the economic transformation, that it will boost the productive sectors, especially the labor intensive sectors like, let's suppose, textiles, etc. Also, we need to understand that India Africa capacity partnerships are happening. For example, India has improved their relationship significantly with Nigeria and certain other countries. It is because of that being voice of global south, India wants to leverage the potential of the global south countries, and African countries, their voices aren't heard properly at the global forums because of lack of proper representation. And they also has a huge potential not only for the economic benefits, but also they can provide solutions to the emerging challenges that will come in future. And that is the reason India is promoting the cooperation along with the coordination with the African countries. And that is also visible from the fact that African Union became the member of G20 only when India was the president in 2023. Also, the 20% of African youth remain non-employable as per the ILO report because of the poor skill sets that they have. So that can be also addressed, and that can provide the stability and the jobs, and that can address the chaos that we are witnessing, because if people will not have job, they may resort to some of the illegal activities. And then another important is the global healthcare response team. As we have seen that the G20 agenda was expanded to finance, from finance to trade, health, and then energy, etc. Similarly, what we saw that when COVID-19 came, there were various countries who didn't know what should be the response against this particular pandemic. But WHO also, whatever the guidelines etc. that they were giving, but the human response to that was not very good because of the poor resources that they have. So that is the reason India is also focusing on a global healthcare response team, because whenever a kind of healthcare emergency or contingency comes, that not only impacts the health of the person, it impacts the economy of that particular country, as well as it also creates problem for whole world. For example, if COVID-19 came, it created supply chain disruptions. The countries who were highly dependent on the China, when China came with their zero COVID policy and they went for strict lockdown measures or quarantine measures, etc., that also impacted the supply of the products. And the countries who were dependent on the imports from the China, the availability of that products hampered. For example, the pharmaceutical industries, which are highly dependent on the raw materials which we take from the China, that was hampered. And that is the reason India launched this production linked incentive scheme to realize the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Along with that, various other initiatives like Make in India, PM Gati Shakti, etc. were launched. So that is the reason, with collective expertise that the G20 countries have, we can pool the medical practitioners, doctors, epidemiologists, etc. And these emergency specialists can actually help us in giving a coordinated and effective response. For example, India deployed the teams during the Nepal 2015 earthquake, and that has helped in coping up with that particular situation, because if we are giving a proper response in a time manner, that can save the lives of the people. Or let's suppose earthquake is coming, or any other kind of, let's suppose, disaster came, and the response is not good, especially the medical response, that can lead to further communicable disease burden increasing in that particular area because of the poor sanitation hygiene conditions, because of poor knowledge or the awareness that how they should be living in the tents or how they should be living in the makeshift areas. And that can provide a rapid emergency action, as well as it will lead a proper disaster readiness among the different members. Also, it will ensure a proper global health security. For example, the WHO says that the average outbreak response time must shrink from 45 days to 7 days. And if there will be a team on standby, that target we can achieve. And also it will lead to the stronger outbreak defense. For example, it will support the global health security to prevent another COVID-19 like disruption. The pandemic caused almost $12 trillion global economic loss. So if the response will be coordinated and in an efficient manner, that loss can be further reduced. Also, the fourth proposal is G20 initiative on countering the drug terror nexus. India has been one of the major victim of terrorism. For example, recently Pahalgam attack happened in April 2025, and that attack led to loss of several civilians. India responded with Operation Sindoor. India targeted various terrorist sites in Pakistan like Murid ke Bahawalpur. Pakistan responded with drone and missile attacks which India intercepted effectively. And India's response to that was much more stronger. India targeted various key air bases like Noor Khan, etc., or certain other strategic sites like Kirana Hills. But what we need to understand that there is a nexus that is emerging between the drug trade, drug cartels and the terrorism. The network which is there in the drugs trade that is being utilized for funding terrorist operations or ensuring that terrorist operations can happen. Recently on October 27, when PCR frisking was happening in Ludhiana, there was a grenade that was found from one of the vehicles. And when police started investigation, they linked it with several jail inmates. They also linked it with several other people who were involved in organized crime. And then it came to light that those grenades were brought to be used to disrupt the Chhat Puja. And there was a barter that was involved, that instead of giving money for conducting that terrorist operation, they were getting drugs in lieu of that. Again, that shows the drug and terror nexus. Along with that, if you see the location of India, India is sandwiched between this golden crescent and golden triangle, which are the major areas of the opium producer. Along with that, they are the major areas which produce drugs. And India is a huge market. It has a huge young population, and that serves as a huge market for these major drug producing areas. And when the borders are porous and it becomes very difficult to ensure a constant vigil on these borders, we often see that drugs trafficking is happening from Myanmar, Bangladesh border or from the Pakistan border. So what we are witnessing, first of all, it is impacting the youth. The time that they can utilize for doing some productive activities, that is getting wasted in these drugs itself. Along with that, what we are witnessing, that it is creating a further complication, that the earlier, whenever a terrorist organization will have to conduct a terrorist operation, they will have to ensure that they are ensuring, or they are going for a proper network building, or they are going for supplying proper ensuring that they are supplying men and material in a time bound manner. But already there is a network of drugs, drug cartels, drug traffickers, and that is being utilized for the terrorist activities. So this is a new nexus that is emerging, and this is not a challenge for India per se, but it is for the whole world. And that is the reason India is asking for a global coordination for an unified anti-drug effort. Also, this will help in public health protection, as well as this, for example, FATF grey listing can cut 2 to 4% of GDP in investment flows. So with the security strengthening and the governance energy, we can further provide the security tools which will be aligned with the FATF rules, which is there for curbing money laundering and terrorist financing. Financial forensics can happen, border intelligence can be increased. Why? Because these kind of incidents are transnational in nature. They are not limited to any one jurisdiction itself. And if there will be a coordinated response, we can address this particular issue comprehensively. Along with that, for example, global drug use has reached to around 296 million users as per UNODC in 2023, and that is again the reason why India is focusing on addressing this menace. The fifth proposal is G20 Open Satellite Data Partnership. As you already hear multiple times that data is the new oil. So India is focusing on data democratization. For example, recently we witnessed the issue of GPS spoofing. And this was the case not only limited to Delhi airport, but several other airports like Mumbai, Lucknow, etc. were also impacted by this GPS spoofing. GPS is a foreign technology. India also has this GPS system, Navik. But as of now, the airlines, ATC, etc. use this GPS. And when GPS spoofing happened, it again showed a major challenge which the countries can face in future. That it is not that if the missile attack or the drone attack will happen, only then there will be loss of life and property. Even the technologies which are already in use, if that is being compromised, that can also endanger the life and property of the people. So India is focusing on the data democratization, that the people who are using the data, they should be owning that. They have the authority that how they can share, how they can use their data. And that is the reason India is focusing on wider satellite access, interoperable system, that is shared G20 space data, and global south support in the science and development boost. Also better decision making with the data driven governance and tech cooperation, that is strengthening the space partnership. For example, India can send various smaller satellites of other African countries or the members of the G20 countries, so that the cooperation in the technological field can further increase. And it will help the global south nation who are lacking the space infrastructure, especially the African countries. And For example, 20 plus African countries do not operate their own satellites, and India can provide solutions to them. And with the shared G20 space data, this will make Earth observation, weather, crop monitoring, disaster resilience more effective. And for example, science and development boosts the satellite rainfall data, reduce crop loss in Kenya's insurance pilots by 30%. So that kind of crop monitoring, Earth reconnaissance, etc. can be provided by the Open Satellite Data Partnership. Similarly, the sixth proposal is G20 Critical Minerals Circulatory Initiative, because as of now, we will be knowing that whole world is dependent on few countries for the critical minerals like cobalt, lithium, etc. Because these are the minerals which are highly used across different industries, be it automobile, be it the electronics, etc. And whenever there will be supply disruptions of these critical minerals, that will also impact the other industries. And that is the reason India is proposing for the Critical Mineral Circulatory Initiative, where the resources can be shared, and that can also reduce the dependence on primary mining, and that will ease the supply chain pressures. It will also promote the innovations such as urban mining, second life batteries to deliver the environmental benefits and support the sustainable practices. It will also reduce the e-waste which is getting generated. It will also facilitate the joint research, technology standards and pilot recycling facilities in the global south. For example, let's suppose 70% of cobalt comes from Congo, but that is high geopolitical risk is there because of the huge dependency, and that is the reason they want to further improve and reduce the dependency on any one country itself. Also, the global demand for critical minerals is going to rise by around 4 to 6% by 2040 as per IEA, and that is the reason we need to ease down the supply chain pressures. We should not limit ourselves to few countries itself, and that is one of the reason this particular proposal is given by India. Now let's look into the limitations of the G20. First of all, the limited representation and the legitimacy, that this is a self-selected group which is not comprehensive, which is not inclusive. For example, small island developing states, they do not have proper representation in this particular organization. For example, Tuvalu is one of the small island which is highly impacted by rising sea level, global warming, climate change, etc. But their voices are not getting heard in the major forums. Similarly, this G20 have exclusive decision making. They do not have a proper secretariat. Major functions are being done by the TRIOCA, that is the past member, present member and the future member. For example, the present TRIOCA is that present member is South Africa, past member is Brazil, which was the president in 2025 president is South Africa, and next president in 2026 will be United States. So this TRIOCA will be doing the major secretariat function. Also, they have the weak non-member engagement. Even the guests which are called in the G20, there is lack of proper objective criteria for that. The climate financing talks that are happening, the mechanisms which are being developed, that is without consulting the small island developing states. Also, weak follow-up mechanisms are there. For example, TRIOCA continues but no enforcement power. They do not have any enforcement power whatever the agenda that they decide. For example, 100 billion climate financing goal that was established, that was set up, but that is still unmet. Also, narrow membership for the global problems. For example, limited voice in climate, debt, pandemics, etc. Example is that 60% of low income countries are in debt distress, but again that voice is not getting heard in this kind of forum which was initially established for looking into the issues related to finances itself. Also, the north-south imbalance, for example, falling ODA, that is official development assistance, which is provided, let's suppose, by OECD. So here again there is dominance of rich nations. For example, official development assistance was only 7% in 2023-24, and there is a huge adaptation gap that is witnessed especially in the African countries, that they are not getting proper funds, finances to deal with the climate change related emerging issues. Also, divergent priorities are there. For example, some of them are promoting to look up to the issues related to climate change, some are focusing on technology and transitions, and some are focusing on the poverty and equity divide. So that is the reason the forum is not able to decide a common agenda which is the focus area of all. And for example, fossil fuel phase out disputes happened in 2020-23. Similarly, there are geopolitical rivalries also. For example, rivalry between Russia and USA. When Russia-Ukraine war erupted, US has several apprehensions with regard to the participation of Russia. Similarly, when they annexed Crimea, again there were apprehensions of US for the participation of Russia. The rivalry or the tariff wars that are going on between China and United States, that also creates a problem for the proper communication and collaboration. What is the path ahead? First of all, there can be a permanent G20 secretariat that will improve the continuity, that will also ensure a proper agenda, and it will also bring a proper oversight mechanism for the monitoring of the decisions which are being made. For example, whatever the climate finance tracking gaps which are being witnessed as of now, that can be addressed. Also, regional consultative groups can be formed with the financial stability board models that will bring the structured inputs from non-G20 nations, that will give better opinions, that will lead to better knowledge sharing, where these countries can share some of the best practices which can be utilized by other countries. And the permanent observer status can be done especially for the global south blocks, for example ASEAN or Caribbean community, etc. They can have a proper observer status, and that can lead to better coordination with them. Also, we can have the rotating special invitees that will also ensure that these countries have a security or the surety that their voices will be heard, they will be represented in these forums. For example, small island developing states, Pacific islands, etc. There can be a fixed formula that this is the mechanism that we will be following for the representation of these countries. Also, we need stronger working groups. For this will help in focused action on climate finance, debt, digital rules. For example, Zambia's slow debt restructuring. So if there is a mechanism which is being promoted, if it will not be followed properly, there will not be a dedicated dedicated manpower that will be deployed for the looking into the functioning of that particular initiative which was launched. It will be very difficult for us to ensure that that particular initiative is getting fulfilled properly. Also, we need to enhance the TRIOCA mechanism. For example, there can be multi-year policy coherence across presidencies. For example, India, Brazil, South Africa. We should not limit ourselves to the TRIOCA itself. Rather, the earlier presidents also can help in deciding the agenda, and that can bring us better agendas, and that can be much more effective. And that can also help us in achieving the idea which our Honorable Prime Minister also said, that our priorities will focus on healing our one earth, the earth which is battling from climate change related issues, disasters, pandemic, and new type of challenges which are coming every day. And this will be achieved by creating harmony within our one family, that we improve our collaboration, we improve our coordination, we are shedding our apprehensions associated with each country, and that will give hope for our one future which is bright, future where we are able to achieve our climate goals, future where we are able to achieve our emission goals, etc. That can help us in ensuring that earth remains habitable for our future generations. And this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. Our next topic is India's silent economic powerhouse, MSMEs. The context of this topic is that the MSME and their representative bodies are saying that the 4 new labor codes which are getting implemented, they will help in reducing the compliance burden on these MSMEs. And this is something that they were calling for years, for the implementation of 4 new labor codes. And that will again open new horizon for the growth of these MSME units. Also, this is related to your GS paper 3, growth and development, industrial policy and industrial growth. Now, if we say that what exactly is a MSME, based on the revised criteria which is provided in Union Budget 2025, we can categorize a MSME, that is micro, small or medium enterprise, based on the investment and turnover limit. Earlier it was 1 crore for micro enterprise and the turnover limit was 5 crore, which is increased to 2.5 crore for the investment and 10 crore for the turnover. So the current investment limit for micro enterprise is 2.5 crore and 10 crore is the turnover limit for micro enterprise. Similarly, 2.25 crore is the investment limit for small enterprise and 100 crore is the turnover limit for the small enterprises. And then for medium enterprises, we have 125 crore investment limit and 500 crore for turnover limit. Turnover, in simple terms, you can say the total revenue a business or corporation generates from the sales that they are doing. Now, why exactly this particular criteria was revised? It is because of the fact that these MSME units were facing issue that was dwarfism. And what is that? There were various issues, there were various benefits which are given to these MSME units on account of being an MSME. For example, if their investment was within this limit for micro, small and medium enterprises, and their turnover limit was also within this limit itself, they will get their status, whether it is micro status, small status or medium enterprise status. And there are various benefits that are given to them on being this MSME unit itself. For example, they get subsidized loans, they are also kept under the PSL norms, etc. And they do not want to lose those benefits which are being given to them being the MSME itself. And that is one of the reason there were reports that some of these units intentionally were keeping themselves small. They were not growing, and government really wants them to grow, because when they will grow, that will further create more employment, that will further boost their chances of the export, that will further contribute to the economic growth. And that was one of the reason why the reclassification happened, and the investment and the turnover limit was increased almost 2 to 2.5 times. And then if you see the other data related to the MSME, that what is their GVA in India's GDP, it is around 30.1% in year 2020-23 as per the budgetary documents. Similarly, if you look into growth of MSME export, this has increased from 3.95 lakh crore in 2020-21 to 12.39 lakh crore in 2024-25. This is again the data from budget. Also, what is the role of MSME in India's economy? First of all, the GDP and the industrial growth that they are providing, that this helps in strengthening the domestic supply chains, as well as it helps in bringing the industrial clusters. For example, it helps in contributing around 30% to GDP, 46% to export and 45% to manufacturing output. Along with that, there are various clusters that are located in different regions in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, which has very robust MSME architecture. Also, it provides employment and livelihoods. For example, it is one of the largest non-farm job provider, that it is creating around 7.5 crore jobs. And it is supported by other schemes also, like Stand Up India, Startup India, etc. And then the export and the global reach, that they account for around 45.73% of India's export from the data of 2023-24. And they are very strong in some of the labor intensive sectors like textiles, food processing industry, etc. For example, Lijjat Papad or handicrafts, etc. that are made. One district, one product, products which are being promoted by, let's suppose, Uttar Pradesh government. So they are being mainly done by the MSME unit itself. Then the digital and the tech transformation. For example, 72% of MSMEs transactions are digital in nature. They are mainly driven by the open network for the digital commerce, which provides them a platform for the sale of their products. 1 lakh crore innovation funds, RBI's credit platform. Then government e-marketplace, again this is the platform where they can sell their product to the government agencies. And if you look into the other roles, the women and the social impact, that women own around 20.5% of all the Udyam registered MSMEs. It is also contributing in the empowerment of these women. Along with that, when women are getting empowered, for example, the Jivika Didis, which are getting around 10,000 rupees in Bihar, that is again further promoting the entrepreneurs. And when they are empowered, there are chances that they will be deciding the contraceptives that they will be used, the child nutrition, etc. will be better taken care of when the woman will be empowered. So that will also lead to a proper cognitive development of child, and that will further lead to better educational and health indicators of the child. And when they will have better educational and health indicator and skills will be improved, their employability will improve. So overall human capital is also getting improved when women are getting empowered. Also, rural and agro enterprises, that majority of these MSME units are based in the rural areas itself. That will help us in addressing the distress migration that we witness from rural to urban areas. That rural areas, there are lack of non-farm jobs, and these people, these persons, when they do not have jobs, they shift to the urban locations where they get some kind of jobs. But if the MSME units will already be available in the rural areas itself, these MSME units can provide proper jobs to these people, and they will not be compelled to go to the urban areas. And when a huge migration is getting witnessed in the urban areas, that also create another challenge, that urban infrastructure is getting overburdened, the pollution that we witness, lack of proper sanitation, hygiene, increased cases of slums, or the increased issues of malnutrition, health related complications, and all that is getting witnessed because we are one of the important reason for witnessing that is the rural to urban migration that we are witnessing, unplanned urbanization that we are witnessing, urban sprawl that we will witness. So if there will be MSME units, they will be providing them jobs at the local level itself, so these people will not be compelled to shift to the urban areas. Also green and sustainable growth, that some of them are adopting clean technology and circular economy model. They are focusing on reuse, recycle, etc. Also one of the World Bank program RAMP, which is again focusing on the MSME units, that they will shift to the sustainable alternatives. But there are certain challenges which are being faced by these MSME units. First of all, the limited access to credit. As per CRISIL, which is a credit rating agency, 20% of MSMEs are having access to formal credit, and the dependence on the informal credit further complicates their working capital. Along with that, the informal credit is high, the interest is much higher, that further take a toll on the profits that they have. Also 2.5 crore out of 6.3 crore MSMEs avail institutional finance. They do not have proper collateral, they do not have proper knowledge or awareness related to that. Then we also have the regulatory burden, that is complex overlapping regulations related to labor, tax, environment, and it becomes really difficult to comply with all those regulations. And that is one of the reason government came with this 4 labor codes, which has merged various earlier labor laws which were there, more than 40 labor related laws were there. Now when only 4 labor codes are there related to, let's suppose, wages, social security, then condition related to working conditions, etc., it will be much easier for these MSME units to comply with that. But earlier this complex as well as overlapping compliance burden was further creating them a challenge. Also the frequent policy changes, high compliance cost, then skill and technology gaps that is there. They have a limited skilled workforce, especially the areas where they are working, and they are using outdated machinery, and that further limits the competitiveness of their product, because if they are working with unskilled workforce, semi-skilled workforce, outdated machinery, that means that whatever the products that they are making, that will take more time to come out, or the cost involved is much higher. So it will be very difficult for them to compete with their peers, compete with the global products. Also only 6% of MSMEs use e-commerce for sale. E-commerce like Amazon platforms or the Flipkart, Meesho, etc. has provided them platform with the help of which they can access a huge market. But because of lack of knowledge, because of lack of apprehensions related to that, they are not able to take full use of that. And that is the reason there are various programs, Amazon, Saheli, etc., which these e-commerce platforms are also promoting. 45% has adopted any form of AI. With AI, this was from the survey which was done from the Ministry of MSME itself. There are some infrastructure constraints also. The poor connectivity, logistics cost is still very high, that is around 14% of the GDP, which is much higher as compared to the global developed countries. And high logistics cost further shrinks their profit, and that further creates them problems. Limited access to industrial park, high-speed internet, and common facilities. Other challenges are, for example, market access and global competitiveness. Low integration with the global value chains, branding, export, support, and quality market. They do not have a proper knowledge with regard to the marketing of the product. For example, at any of the shop when you go, there are certain packagings which are eye-catching. By seeing that packaging itself, we get an idea that this product may be good. So the chances that we will be buying that product is much higher. But these MSME units do not have that idea how we should brand our product, how we should market our product, how we should package our product. And that also creates a problem that they are finding it difficult to comply with the sanitary and the phytosanitary measures of the WTO. For example, the MDH, Everest masalas, they were sent back by Hong Kong, European Union, Singapore, etc. because there was presence of ethylene oxide beyond permissible limit. Ethylene oxide is generally used in pharma industry, and that is for the sterilization of the equipments that are used in pharma industry, but they are also using this in masalas to prevent the germination of the microorganisms. But in India, they are selling anything, they are making a seat anything, but in the foreign markets the parameters are much more stringent, and if we will not follow that, our products will be sent back, and that will also give a negative image in the global market. Also, low scheme awareness and utilization, complex application process, they deter first time and rural entrepreneurs. Sustainability and the ESG compliance, environment, social governance, that MSME emit around 110 million tons of CO2 annually. This is the from the Center for Study 2018. High cost for green tech and lack of incentives that also hinder transitions. Non-compliance risk will also lead to export losses. And if you look into Indian states by number of MSMEs, you will see a huge portion of that in Maharashtra, MP, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, etc. That some of the states who are having a proper business environment, who have a proper ease of doing business, they are also providing a proper environment for these MSME units to grow and prosper. What are the government initiative? We have this credit guarantee fund trust for MSMEs that provides loans up to 5 crore without collateral. Then also we have the Mudra Yojana of 2015, under which 27.8 lakh crore funds were disbursed till financial year 24. Then we have the priority sector lending, under which 7.5% of adjusted net bank credit is mandated for MSMEs. Udyam registration portal, 5.93 crore MSMEs are registered by 2025, and that is linked to financial services. Trades, that is trade receivables discounting system, that is a digital platform for bill discounting from corporates and government buyers. Emergency credit line guarantee scheme, that is 3.61 lakh crore dispersed to MSMEs till financial year 2024. There are certain other SIDBI initiatives, for example 59-minute portal for the instant loan approvals to ensure that they have a proper access to the working capital. Sampark and Samadhan portal, online resolution of payment delays, vendor registration. MSME champions portal that provides single window for finance, tech, upgradation, export and support. Then what should be the way forward? First of all, there is need for improving the digital credit access. For example, uniform lending platform is getting promoted. So we can use the Udyam, Aadhaar, Bheem UPI for low cost collateral free loans, so that the working capital, the needs of transportation, etc. can be addressed in a shorter span of time. Account aggregator, that we can have secure data sharing. Sahay GST, that enables the invoice based digital lending, that based on the sales of the company, the invoices that are pending, we can lend to these MSME units. Cash flow lending, link GST and portal to account aggregators. This can shift from asset based to revenue based credit models to these MSME units. Formalization push, we can link loan to the GST invoices. That will also further incentivize GST registration and they can become part of the formal economy. Targeted credit guarantees, that we can focus on salon, tourism, rural MSME during crisis, etc. And we can also strengthen the SIDBI, that 5,000 to 10,000 crore infusion can happen, that can boost the NBFC funding and Udyam assist use. Vyapar credit card can be given in the as the Kisan credit card is given, and this Kisan credit card again that provides short-term lending to the farmers. Earlier its limit was 3 lakh, now it has been increased to 5 lakh rupees after the announcement from budget 25. And similar Vyapar credit card can be given to the MSME units. Then also system-wide KYC can happen, with the help of which we can shift to unified KYC, faster onboarding and lower friction. There is committee also like UK Sinha committee that focuses on MSME credit ecosystem. That the recommendation are cash flow based lending, trades expansion, GST linked credit history. KV Kamath committee that came in 2020, that was mainly to look up to the issues because of the stressed MSME unit due to the COVID-19. That again said for the sector wise restructuring framework, MSME debt resolution guidelines. This was one of the questions that was asked in 2023 prelims. Please answer this question in the comment box, and this is a mains practice question that you people can write from this particular topic. So in our simplified section, first topic is why did India's trade deficit widen in October? Now this is related to your GS paper 3, trade, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 11. We already know that balance of payment is a complete record of all the economic transactions that are happening from the country and the rest of the world during a specific period of time. It compasses mainly, let's suppose, two components, current account and the capital account. Under current account, we have the trade in visibles and trade in invisibles. Visible trade mainly encompasses merchandise trade and invisibles encompasses services trade. When we talk is using word trade, that means it is using both exports and imports. That it incorporates both exports and imports. Let's suppose India is one of the country which is getting 50 rupees for the exports of the various commodities that we are doing. and 100 rupees we are giving from our own pocket for the import of the commodities that we are doing from the foreign market. That means we are paying 100 rupees from our own pocket and 50 rupees we are getting from the foreign countries on account of sale that we are doing. That means we are incurring a 50 rupees deficit. That is what is called as trade deficit. That is the case with Indian economy as of now, that India's trade deficit in October surged by 141% in October 2025 to $21.8 billion. Now again we need to understand that how exactly this deficit can further increase. If our exports are decreasing, let's suppose it has declined to 40 rupees, and our imports are, let's suppose, increasing, the value of import, let's suppose it has increased to 110 rupees. Now the difference between both has increased to 70 rupees. That means earlier we were incurring a deficit of 50 rupees. Now we are incurring a deficit of 70 rupees. Now this export can reduce because of various factors. For example, the tariffs which are imposed by the country which is importing products from the foreign country, or the exports that India is doing to any country. If the foreign country has already imposed certain additional tariff, competitiveness of our product as compared to the foreign products will become less, and then people might prefer the indigenous product or the home product itself. So that will reduce the export potential, that will also reduce the export earning. That is the case with the US tariffs that they have imposed, that it has significantly given a hit to the exports of the Indian economy, especially the labor intensive sectors like textiles, etc. The exports earning has reduced, and the imports, if they are increasing also, for example, to hedge against the currency related risk, people are shifting to gold and silver, and gold and silver imports has reached to a historic high, and that is the reason, since we are already dependent on the imports of gold and silver, people are giving more money for the imports. So import value is also increasing, whereas export value is declining. That is the reason we are witnessing a huge trade deficit. Now also this is what is explained across different sectors why exactly it is happening, that they say that the main drivers of this surge in the import bill is gold and to extent silver. Gold imports jumped nearly 200% in October 2025 to $14.7 billion from 4.9 in October 2024. Gold imports in October reversed this trend that has been in April-September period for this financial year, and there are apprehensions, there are various people who think that this will continue because there is people is using gold as hedge against the currency risk. So there is a chance that gold imports remain elevated, even if not quite as much as what it was witnessed in October month. And also this is what has been said, that data shows that India's exports to US have indeed taken a hit due to tariff imposed which has been by the US president. Now as of now there are trade related discussions, negotiations are going on between the country. Trade tensions between India and US have recently begun receding, with both sides have concluded 6th round of formal negotiation on bilateral trade agreement in October. Also this negative sentiments are slowly and gradually receding. India is also looking up to certain other markets where they can sell their products. But Export and Import Bank of India EXIM recently forecast that India's merchandise export will touch $114.2 billion in October-December 2025 quarter, which would be an year-on-year growth of 5%. Now what is this Export and Import Bank of India? It is the premier export finance institution of the country, and it was set up by an act of the parliament in September 1981, and it commenced its operation in March 1982. This is a statutory body as it is established by an act of parliament, and it is regulated by RBI as established in 1982. Also, the bank primarily provides financial assistance to the exporter and importers, including overseas buyers, to import the developmental and infrastructure projects, goods and services from India. It also coordinates the working of institutions engaged in financing export and import of goods and services with a view of facilitating and promoting India's international trade. That their main aim is to ensure that export is getting promoted so that we can bridge our trade deficit and export can further contribute to the economic growth. And for example, GDP, which is total monetary value of all the goods and services that are produced in the domestic territory during a financial year. When we calculate it based on the expenditure method, there are 4 components: household consumption expenditure, private investment, government spending, and then net of your export, that is export minus import. So if EXIM is promoting export and export earning are getting increased, it is also going to help in bridging trade deficit. It is also going to contribute in the overall GDP growth. Our next topic is, are e-KYC norms excluding MGNREGA workers? This is related to your GS paper 2, poverty, issues relating to development, social sector initiatives, public policy welfare schemes, as well as central sector schemes. And this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 11. So MGNREGA, which provides a legal guarantee of 100 days wage assurance to the people who wants to do unskilled work. Now, one of the major issue with the MGNREGA was the issue of ghost beneficiaries, the people who are not doing work on ground but still their attendance are getting filled and they are getting the wages in their bank accounts. Earlier, the wages were being given in the cash. To address the issue of this leakages, corruption, etc., government went with directly giving the wages in the bank account of the people. Still, people were not there on the ground and they were getting the wages. They were not doing work, still they were getting the work. They were getting the wages. To address that, there were various other mechanisms which were incorporated, for example, geotagging, taking pictures of the workers on the ground. Again, there were various issues. Fake pictures were uploaded on the portal, or different pictures were uploaded in the morning and in the evening. And that is one of the reasons government is also further taking various initiatives to address this issue of ghost beneficiaries and corruption that is involved in this particular scheme. And one of them is e-KYC, that is Know Your Customer norms. That Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act covers around 26 crore registered workers across 2.69 lakh gram panchayats. And over the last 6 months, about 15 lakh workers were deleted. But in just 1 month between October 10 and November 14 this year, they shot up to 27 lakh, nearly double the 6-month total. This far exceeds the 10.5 lakh additions during same period. The spike in deletion coincides with the union government push to conduct e-KYC verification of workers to weed out the ineligible workers. The Union Ministry of Rural Development in a statement said that verification is continuous process and it is a further step towards that. It will strengthen transparency, efficiency, ease of service delivery, and it till date 56% of active workers have completed their e-KYC verification across the state. For example, mobile number based e-KYC is there. There will be an OTP that will come. You have to just submit that, or biometric details might be captured. With the help of that also e-KYC can happen. How exactly the workers are being verified? The government introduced several means to ensure no ineligible person draws any benefits from MGNREGA, and after running a pilot for nearly a year from May 2022, it made mandatory that attendance of workers is captured digitally using a mobile-based application, that is National Mobile Monitoring System. The government directed that the mate or the supervisor on each MGNREGA worksite should click and upload geotagged pictures of workers twice a day. In January 2023, the government made Aadhaar-based payment system mandatory, and this ABPS, which is one of the flagship initiative of National Payment Corporation of India, this uses the worker's unique 12-digit Aadhaar number as their financial address, and for this ABPS to work, a worker's Aadhaar details must be seeded through their job card, and her bank account and workers' Aadhaar must also be mapped with NPCI database. Moreover, the bank's institutional identification number must itself be mapped with the NPCI database. Whatever the digital divide we have, poor internet connections that are there, lack of proper capture of biometric details because of the manual works that people are doing on the ground which can deface their biometric details, plus lack of proper availability and knowledge of all these documents might complicate the situation for these workers. And how exactly this KYC is working? The attendance of MGNREGA workers have been marked on this National Mobile Monitoring System on all work site. This application also has an e-KYC feature where the mate or the supervisor clicks a picture of the worker which is verified against the worker's picture in the Aadhaar database. And is there any correlation between e-KYC drive and the deletion? So this is not the first time that there is surge in deletion. Both introduction of NMMS and ABPS were aimed to bring greater transparency, but it also contributed to exclusion because there will be certain people who are getting the benefits illegitimately. They will be obviously kept outside. Also, Aadhaar seating of job cards is the foundational step towards the ABPS. Once that will be done properly, that might also save certain people, certain genuine beneficiaries from getting excluded. Also, this National Mobile Monitoring System has failed to achieve the intended goal of transparency. It discovered irrelevant, unrelated photographs were being uploaded in many cases. Photo to photo capturing instead of live work images are happening. That they have already taken, let's suppose, a picture in another mobile phone or tab, and they are just clicking picture from another phone from that particular phone rather than taking the live pictures itself. At block level, 20% of photos at random would needs to be verified. At district level, this number comes down to 10% and state level 5%. This has been done to ensure that verification are also happening at the ground level, that what kind of pictures are getting uploaded under the NMMS. At Gram Panchayat, there will be 100% verification that will be happening. One of the reasons to introduce e-KYC was the failure of this NMMS. And also Aadhaar seeding of the job cards will be the foundation step, and once we do all this particular reforms effectively, that is Aadhaar seeding, along with that proper awareness is being given to the people that they need to ensure that their Aadhaar cards are properly linked, they are properly seeded with their job cards, etc. We can further enhance the effectiveness and transparency of this measure. This MGNREGA or Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which came in 2005, aims to generate employment and enhance the economic condition of rural citizens, and it is a centrally sponsored scheme from Ministry of Rural Development. It provides 100 days wage employment assurance, unemployment allowance if work not provided, a fixed timeline for payment of wages, compensation for delayed payments, transparency and accountability with the help of digital technologies that are being used. Direct these wages are going into the bank account of the people, e-KYC, etc. All that is leading to transparency and accountability. Wages to be credited to the bank or the post office accounts of that person itself. And eligibility criteria for this scheme is that he should be citizen of India, he should be having 18 years of age at the time of application, he or she should be a rural household, and he or she should be willing to do any unskilled work. If you see the funding structure, 100% funding for unskilled labor cost is given from the center, 25% of material cost comes from the state, 75% of material cost is given by the center itself, and cost of unemployment allowance that is payable under the scheme is by the state itself. Our next topic is that COVID-19 virus poses higher risk in the kids than vaccines. This is said by one of the studies that has been done. This is related to your GS paper 2 health, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu page number 10. So the COVID-19 infections in children raises risk of cardiac inflammatory diseases more than the vaccination, a study has found. Researchers analyzed records of around 13.9 million under 18 people in England, enabling robust estimates for the rare complications. In the first week post-infection, risk of all studied complications surged compared to an uninfected children and adolescent. Along with that, risk of venous clots, low platelets, as well as other complications are elevated for months. And vaccination caused only a brief, and that whatever the complications they are witnessing, they are usually mild rise they are witnessing when no long-term excesses are being witnessed. The finding challenge vaccine hesitancy by showing infection carriers greater or more persistent harms, because whenever a person gets vaccine, there can be mild fever that can come, there may be a mild body ache, etc. that they can witness, but whatever the real infection is showing, that is much more high, and that is the reason we need to shred this vaccine hesitancy and we need to go for taking that. Now in 2023 there was a question related to ACE2, that the term ACE2 is talked about in the context of. Now let's try to understand that what is the mechanism that this SARS-CoV-2 actually follows. So virus enters the body. Let's suppose any infected person, if he or she coughs or sneezes, and because of that that particular virus can enter in our body with the help of breathing that we are doing. So virus will first land on the cells and lining the nose, throat and lungs, and then how exactly the virus will infect the cell? Virus attach to these ACE2 receptors, and then these human cells have the special proteins on their surface. These are called as the ACE2 receptors itself, and virus mainly uses its spike protein to latch onto these receptors are there. For example, you see whenever you are opening a lock from the key just fits into that lock itself. There are special places that are built in that lock itself so that that key can adjust in that lock. Similarly, this virus can stick to that ACE2 receptor itself. It will fit to that ACE2 receptor, and the virus will use its spike protein to latch on these receptors as we discussed, like a key fitting onto the lock, and other helpers like let's suppose TMP, RSS, etc. are there. Now these TMP, RSS2, these are the helpers of this, and furin, they help the virus to further enter and further complicate the situation. The virus will enter the cell, okay, and then the virus is pull inside the cell in a small bubble like structure which is called as vesicle. This is vesicle. With the help of vesicle it will be pulled into the cell, and the viral membrane fuses with the vesicle, and the virus releases its DNA inside the cell itself. It is releasing its RNA in the cell, and then virus uses the cell to make new viruses. Viral RNA tells the cell to make viral proteins and new virus particles. Cell becomes a virus making factory. Once the RNA was released in that cell, this will further multiply, and that cell which was infected in the first instance, that will become a virus making factory. The new virus will be assembled, viral proteins and genetic materials will join together inside cell. Complete new viruses will be formed, and then virus will release. The newly made viruses leave the cell, and once they leave the cell, they go on to infect many more nearby cells, spreading deeper into the lungs, and that will further weaken the lungs of the person. And how exactly the immune system is responding, this is the response of the immune system. So the antigen presenting cells, that is the APC, these detect the virus when the infection happen. Then the immune cells will swallow the viral particles and show small pieces, peptides, to other immune cells, and then this is like raising an alarm. Then the T helper cell, which is you can say will come to save our body, they will coordinate the immune response, and they tell the B cell and cytotoxic T cell that what to do. B cell will produce antibodies. These are antibodies which will help in fighting the infection or viral infection which is happening. The antibody will attach to the virus and block it from infecting other cells. And when a person is taking vaccines, it is helping us in developing that antibodies in the first instance itself. Whenever a new infection will come, these antibodies will help in preventing the infection to a larger extent. And then the cytotoxic T cell will kill the infected cell, and these cells will hunt down and destroy the infected cell, so the virus cannot spread further. And then memory cells are also made. These memory B and T cells are created. After the infection, the body will be creating these B cell, T cells which will be memory based, and this will help the body respond much faster if the virus returns in future, or if in future also there is a further infection that is happening. Next topic is IMF flags the Pak's corruption, eroding public trust, system favoring elite. This is related to your GS paper 3, banking sector, non-banking financial companies, monetary policy, fiscal policy and inclusive growth. And this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 5. So the context is that corruption is a persistent feature of Pakistan governance landscape, and its enforcement action in prosecuting money laundering is weak. Judicial institutions are perceived as corrupt, and anti-corruption institutions have a history of political influence. These are some of the key findings of IMF report which was published this week itself. And governance and corruption diagnostics was conducted at the request and with the support of Pakistan government to identify and analyze the governance weakness and corruption vulnerabilities that are actually undermining the economic performance of Pakistan. An interdepartmental IMF team joined by the experts from the World Bank initiated this governance and corruption diagnostic in January 2025, and over the course of 8 months and 2 field missions, they took place within the context of 37-month $7 billion IMF extended fund facility provided on September 25, 2024. And this publication of report is one of the precondition for IMF executive board's approval for $1.2 billion disbursement of next month. There are various mechanisms or the programs which are given by the IMF to ensure that the short-term credit needs or the long-term fund needs of the countries are getting fulfilled. For example, extended credit facilities there, which is one of the main tools for providing medium-term lending to low-income countries. And then currently it is at 0 interest rate until 2016. Then standby credit facility is there, rapid credit facility is there, which is emergency lending, 0 interest rate, 5.5 year grace period is there. Standby arrangement is there for again short term lending, length is typically 12 to 24 months, and repayment is generally 3.25 to 5 years of disbursement. Extended fund facilities there for medium and long term lending, and the use has increased substantially in recent crisis period. For example, Sri Lanka, when they were facing the economic crisis, then again various facilities were extended by the IMF to Sri Lanka, because what they did, they shifted to organic farming that has significantly reduced the income of the agriculture people who were dependent on the agriculture, plus agriculture production was also declined, and that has also led to huge food inflation. Along with that, COVID-19 came near to that time itself, and Sri Lankan economy is highly dependent on tourism. Because of that, this faced a severe crisis of default, and in that case IMF extended that support. Along with that, flexible credit line, precautionary liquidity line, rapid financing instrument, etc. are the various other programs of IMF. And this is one of the reason why this is again one of the favorite topics of the UPSC. You can see in 2022, in 2020 and 2016, they have asked various questions related to the programs of IMF. You people tell me the answer of this particular question in the comment box. And this IMF is a UN specialized agency that was founded at Bretton Woods Conference in 1944. The main aim of this is to support global monetary cooperation, securing the financial stability of the countries, also facilitate international trade, promoting high employment and sustainable economic growth, as well as to reduce poverty. There are different reports which are published by IMF. World Economic Outlook is there. Then World Economic Prospects is there. You people tell me who releases that World Economic Prospects. Global Financial Stability Report is there. Fiscal Monitor is there, as well as they also comes with their other regional economic outlook. Also, Pakistan is targeting 4.2% growth this year, and IMF estimates that it will boost economic growth, whatever the bailout mechanism will be given by the IMF. And the state dominant role in economy, including extensive ownership of enterprises, control over critical sectors, create vulnerabilities to rent seeking and regulatory capture. And it said that any anti-money laundering, combating financing of terrorism frameworks have improved, enabling Pakistan removal from the FATF grade list. Yet enforcement remains weak, especially in the prosecution of the corruption related money laundering. So already they have announced this, but again approval will come after the preconditions will be met, and that is one of the reason there has been various checks that are being done by the IMF, that whatever the money that is being given to them, whether that is being utilized for the intended purpose and whether that is leading to visible changes on the ground or not. Our next topic is dark patterns. Stay for consumers, gig staff, post self-audit. This is related to your GS paper 2, government policies and interventions, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 9. So while the Central Consumer Protection Authority has obtained declaration from most major e-commerce platforms that they have eliminated dark patterns from their services, consumer groups and researchers say these still exist on many digital platforms and quick commerce apps as well as e-commerce websites. The dark patterns are deceptive practices that are used to trick customers into paying more. And a recent report by the Center for Responsible AI at IIT Madras shows that this gamut includes at least one more effect, that is misleading gig workers into getting paid less. For example, let's suppose you would be aware of the fact, or whenever we use the Ola or the Uber services, there are various notifications that keeps on coming at the screen of that particular person that within 20 seconds, 30 seconds you have to accept this order, otherwise it will be given to any other person. And that creates a pressure for that person. There may be a case that particular ride may be available for next 1 minute, 20 minutes, but deliberately they are giving that 20-25 second time to that particular driver. Also, this report published in September lists a few of the dark pattern gig workers are facing. For example, false urgency, where workers are shown a countdown timer to indicate job will disappear if they don't act fast enough to accept it. Why? Because what is the main aim of these companies? They want to expand their sales. They want to ensure that they are getting a proper profit from the earnings that they are doing. And that is to increase that whatever the sales that they have to do. If they will not create a sense of urgency, there may be a case that person might become lethargic and they may not accept order in a time bound manner. Also, wage concealment, where workers are not shown in potential earnings from a job until they accept it, or the commissions which are variable in nature, it is showing to any of the person that they will be getting only 80 rupees, whereas company is taking 150 rupees for that particular ride. Also, the penalties which might be levied to them with regard to the poor services, or with regard to the delay in with regard to the delay that will happen in completing that order. Also, in an interview, one of the person who appeared for this CE, Center for Responsible AI, told that transparency gaps remain in the function, and especially in the algorithmic capacity, opacity that is there. How exactly the algorithm work? Why exactly some persons are getting a particular order? Why exactly there is the 20% seconds timer or the countdown is going on? And if you look into the major dark patterns, the Central Consumer Protection Authority have outlined 13 major categories of the dark patterns. For example, false urgency, e-commerce platforms deceitfully displaying scarcity of the products to mislead consumers, that they show that only one is left 2 is left, and that creates a sense of urgency to us that if we will not order this product in 5 minutes, 10 minutes itself, this product can go out of stock itself. Then confirm shaming, that e-commerce platforms manipulating customers to act in a certain way by projecting shame, guilt or ridicule, that they will show that you have already added this product in your cart and you are not placing your order, you are not completing your order, you are not wearing this particular product which is being worn by Ranbir Kapoor or any other person. Then basket sneaking, platforms including additional items and services or payments for charity during checkout without buyer's consent, that they will already ensure a checkbox that this much is going for the charity, so without even the consent of the person itself. And if person is in hurry, they will not look at that small charity amount that is already added. Subscription trap, that making the process of cancelling a subscription difficult, complex or lengthy for users by often hiding the option. There are many cases, there were various platforms who, for cancelling a particular subscriptions, required proper customer care executive ticket raising, or they were requesting you to send an email to cancel the subscription. They deliberately made the process too lengthy that people will say, okay, leave this particular thing and I will continue with the subscription. Forced action, that user being compelled to make an additional purchase, for instance premium subscription or sign up for an unrelated service. For example, once you'll go for buying a particular item, there will be a message that will flash that this particular item you can add at 50% off. Interface interference, that using interference manipulation to highlight a specific information or obscure other details to mislead a user. For example, this is one of the screenshots that we have taken. Let's suppose the price of this particular product was 93.10 rupees for one particular kg, but when the person adds 4 quantity, the value of this particular product increases significantly. For example, according to this particular value, that it should be 93 into 4, that it should be 360 plus 12, that it should be 372 only, but here the actual price is 387. That means that this 93.10 was only applicable for one quantity, one unit, and for the rest of the 3 a higher prices is getting added by the company itself. That is again one of the dark pattern that you can see. And 387, then the final amount here you can see 390.52 rupees including handling charges of 6 rupees. This is one of the dark pattern. They will deliberately add an extra money for if you are shifting to cash on delivery, and that will again flash for few seconds only, that you will not be able to understand. And moreover, none of the person, whenever a person is in hurry that they wants to get an emergency order, they will not go on taking out calculator, or they will use mathematics that what is the amount they are adding. It is very difficult to monitor this particular dark patterns, and that is the reason CCPA is focusing on eliminating this particular dark patterns, because this is against the welfare of the consumer. That is all from today's analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.